We right. All right. So welcome to tonight's the City of Longmont's Human Services Funding. Tonight we are focusing on food and nutrition agencies that have applied for human services funding. Again, this is being recorded and will be on the City of Longmont's YouTube page. Because the Boulder County Farmers Market has applied for 2 programs, we're going to give you a little extra time than we usually would. Typically, it's 15 minutes. We'll give you 25 minutes plus 5 at the end for you to share anything you want to share with our board members and staff. Again, we don't have to use all that time, but yeah, we record this so that other board members can see it if they can't join us tonight and are also evaluating your application. What we're going to do real quick is introduce ourselves to you and then turn it over to you to introduce yourselves and start the question and answer time. So why don't we start with Cassie? Why don't you introduce yourself, Cassie?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Cassie Lau, and I'm a board member. It's nice to meet you.
Awesome. Crystal, not sure if you're ready or we can go to Christina first. Go, Christina, give Crystal.
Okay. Hi. Oh, go ahead, Crystal.
Hi, good evening. My name is Crystal Prieto, and I'm a board member.
Good evening. I'm Christina Pacheco. I'm the Human Services Director for the city, and I work with Eliberto.
Awesome. And you know me, Eliberto Mendoza, Human Services Program Manager, and I help facilitate this whole process. All right, Mackenzie and Sam, we will turn it over to you to introduce yourself, and then we will start with questions from the board and staff. And again, we got 25 minutes.
Well, good evening, board, and good evening, staff. I'm Mackenzie Selke. I'm the Executive Director of Boulder County Farmers Markets, and I am joined here by my esteemed and excellent colleague, Sam, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sam Ritter. I'm the Food Access Manager at Boulder County Farmers Market.
All right, great. With that, we'll start with the Q&A section of the hearing, and I will, of course, always defer to the board to see if they have any questions. I have some questions as usual, but I will defer to the board to start first. Does any of the board members have questions for Sam or Mackenzie? Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, so I guess I do shop at the farmers market, and I'm just wondering on how you set your prices and what your demographics are, because it looks to me a bit pricey, I guess, so I just wanted to know how that all works together.
Sure. Well, Cassie, thank you so much for shopping at our farmers markets. We're so happy to have you there with us. And I'll just give you a brief bit of background on how our farmers markets work and how they are slightly different from our CSA program, if that would be useful. So at Boulder County Farmers Markets, we are proudly a producer-only farmers market. We're one of the few in Colorado that require everyone who is vending at our markets to directly grow, raise, or create the product that they're selling at our markets. So what that means is that if you're buying produce from our markets, you're buying it directly from the farmer who is cultivating that product here in Boulder County or somewhere in Colorado. We have an independent small business community of about 175 vendors this season, and they span the range of mixed vegetable farmers and fruit vendors to ranchers and grain producers, cheesemakers, all the way to prepared and bakery items purveyors. So it's a really large community of small food businesses, and they're independent. So we don't set prices at the farmers market. What we do have are requirements for our vendors to accept all nutrition voucher programs for eligible products. So while we expect our vendors to be experts in the real cost of their food, we also require them as part of our participation to take WIC and SNAP and farmers market nutrition voucher dollars. They are also required to display their prices and to be able to speak with customers about why they price their products as they do. We have a real range, especially on the farmer side of pricing. So we, in our selection process, are always looking to round out our market mix. And what that means for us is several dimensions there, but that includes price, having a range of price, organic, biodynamic, and conventional growing tactics, and also size and scale of farms. You know, some farms reach a mid-size scale and have a lower price. Some farms are getting started, and we're trying to incubate small farmers in our community. So we do our best to have that range across our different vendors at our markets. And then with the funding that we receive from the City of Longmont, we also work closely with our small producers to provide CSA shares for the farm to early childhood education centers and also for WIC participants. And the way pricing in those instances work is that we negotiate prices for year-round access to that product from lots of different small farm businesses. And our goal there is to provide a fair price, but to also cover all of the packaging and delivery and customer service work that happens for those CSA deliveries. So our goal in this is always the triple bottom line of supporting producers who are doing good work, both economically and environmentally in our community, making sure that we have access to fresh fruits and vegetables in our community, and also that food is affordable and physically accessible to as many members of our community as possible through our vendor selection and through our nutrition incentive programs. I know that was a lot there, Cassie. I could talk about prices a lot, but please let me know if there's anything in that was unclear.
No, that's clear to me. Thank you.
Sure.
Crystal, do you have any questions?
Go ahead, Aliberto, and I might have some follow-up questions after you ask yours.
Awesome. So I have some of my regular questions that you've heard from me before, Mackenzie. I'm pretty consistent. You know, when I read your application and I read the agency narrative, we ask for agency strategic goals, and typically what we get is programmatic goals, which is fine. I'm okay with programmatic goals, but what I really am always looking for is those agency level goals. Whether I want to know what you're thinking about development, with board staff. Overall, I really want to know, is this agency looking toward the future of how it either better serves or is more sustainable? So can you talk to any strategic agency level strategic goals that you have or are working on?
Yeah. And board, just so you know, Eliberto has been an incredible resource for me as a community organization leader to think through and understand how to communicate to funders our agency level goals, and has certainly pushed me to be better and more transparent in things like our board diversity opportunities and our long-term financial sustainability plan for programs like our food access. So at the risk of, taking the floor to brag about your staff, I would just say thank you to Alberto for this question. This is the third time that I get to answer it. And it's my pleasure to say that I'm coming off of our board strategic planning retreat, which took place on September 30th of this year, and identified the 5 key vision and strategy initiatives that BCFM will be focused on over the next 3 years. And Alberto, you'll be so happy to hear that one of our vision themes for the upcoming 3 years is to have a fundraising vision and the resources to power our long-term goals, which include financial and physical accessibility for local food for all members of our community. So I think that one's worth mentioning here tonight. Boulder County Farmers Markets, for our first 38 years of operation, has not been a 501c3 nonprofit. But as of September 30th, we filed our paperwork with the Secretary of State and with our friends at the IRS in order to state our intent to operate as a 501c3 public charity, which will allow us to do public fundraising and seek private philanthropic dollars to support that mission of making sure that everybody has the good, local, healthy, and sustainable food that's produced in their community. So that is one that I just wanted to highlight for you, Alberto. There's certainly others in that list. And I'm happy to talk more about those goals, but that one is the most directly connected to these programs.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that you all working on that. I think that's important for your sustainability in the future as a nonprofit. Crystal, go ahead.
So I'm somewhat familiar with your program, and I guess my one question that comes to mind is, how do you support the community with food during the non-summer months?
Thank you for asking that question, Crystal. You know, we're proud that we're one of the longest seasonal farmers markets in the country. We are on the street for 8 months out of the year, which you can imagine means that we get the full 4 seasons of Colorado weather. But in 2020, given the public health emergency and the changing dynamic between public events and public health, we were unable to operate our seasonal farmers markets for part of that year. And in an effort to support our community members accessing healthy and locally grown food, and to ensure that our farmers and local food producers survived that pandemic era, we shifted our operating model to open a small regional food aggregation operation. So it is located in Longmont. We call it the Boulder County Farmers Market Food Hub. And what that food hub does is work with a group of about 75 small food businesses to provide an Instacart-like service where folks can go online and order grocery staples, and then they can pick them up curbside in their community. We have drop-off locations in Boulder, Longmont, and Lafayette. In addition to that sort of public-facing virtual farmers market, which does operate 50 weeks out of the year, we have a income qualified CSA program that the City of Longmont supports through this funding, where we offer weekly CSA shares to our community members who are eligible for WIC and have transportation or other significant barriers to coming to our farmers market, or who are seeking those additional food staples during the winter months. You know, funding dependent, we're able to offer CSA shares year round. And it's always incredible to see our diehard community of 50 to 100 CSA members tackling the daikon radish that is available to them in the winter months. But we do make sure to provide a variety of options for folks. And there's a lot of opportunity through things like dried beans and pulses, tofu, and storage crops for folks to get some of those high quality, nutritious local products. So we're quite proud of that food hub operation. In addition to those 2 outlets, folks who are eligible for SNAP are able to order online through our online farmers market and receive the Double Up Food Bucks benefit. So that's a supplemental program. It's not necessarily supported by this grant, but it is part of the entire ecosystem that we're working on in order to make sure that local food is supporting local people year round.
Thank you.
I have
Go ahead.
I have a question that I'm asking. You know, all agencies that are applying for human services funding this year. What we have noticed, or what we know, is that the need for our human services funds is outpacing the resources that we have, the 3% in the or the portion of the 3% in the general fund. And so what would be the impact to your organization if your, I guess, first of all, if your full grant request wasn't funded or you weren't funded at all? What would be that impact?
Sure. I can answer that in a couple of ways. And I think I just want to acknowledge how difficult the funding environment is right now. As a nonprofit and as a resident of this community, I'm watching our good partners really try to come up with a lot of resources during a funding scarce time. And that feels really difficult. And we hear a lot of feedback about it because we're do so much direct community work. You know, we hear a lot about the rising cost of groceries and how much inflation is impacting folks' budgets. We hear a lot from our loyal customers who are pretty concerned about making basic needs ends meet. So I just think it's important to just acknowledge that stress. And I appreciate this question, Christina. So from our perspective, the majority of our program funds go into the purchase of and direct support of the incentive. Most of the work is on the provision of the voucher coupons for folks to shop the farmers market. We do have some staff time baked into our grants, but the vast majority of the money that the Human Services Fund puts into these programs directly yields bags of local produce going to early child care centers or to the incentives that are spent at the farmers market to buy local groceries. Certainly the biggest impact of reduction in funds or lack of funds would be reputational and community cohesion. You know, one of the things that's so important to me about your support of this program and Boulder County's support of this program is that there is a dedicated funding stream for this kind of work in the city of Boulder. And we can offer great nutrition incentive vouchers to all Boulder residents. Only through the collaboration that we have with you in the county are folks who are shopping at our Boulder Farmers Market but living in Longmont able to enjoy those same benefits. So there really is kind of a community to community equity issue here that I'm very sensitive to. I think the other thing that I feel very passionately about, we work hard with our staff and vendors on, is the belief that folks are entitled to, have a right to the food that's produced in their community, and they should be able to access it with dignity. And without these programs, as Cassie said, the feeling of cost and the feeling of price in local food would have a chilling effect on our customers. We have tremendous loyalty of our low-income customers to these programs, and there really is a solidarity of support between our farmers and our customers there as our farmers work to provide special discounts, as they work to provide high quality and equitable service, and as our customers develop relationships and return year over year. You really do see that this program has sort of a community meshing effect, for lack of a better turn of phrase. And so for us, the support on the staff side is important, and the investment in local food feels meaningful because it is a direct investment back into the community and something that tends not to leave the community, because every dollar spent with a local food business or other business typically stays 85% in the community rather than exiting. It's another investment in Boulder County. But for me, more importantly, it's this idea that we work hard to make these programs equitable across the cities in our community, and that folks can feel supported and also, I don't know, open to the experience of doing something like going to a farmer's market, even though they are resource constrained.
So, and again, in particular for you, I always ask, and I ask this question, and we've had conversations about this. And part of it, I think, is a challenge of being a 501c4, not a 501c3. So one of the things that in particularly staff look at, or I look at, not necessarily the board, they look at other parts of your application. But I always consider, how much community support do you have this program, and what kind of diversity of funding are you seeing? And when I look at yours, and we've had this conversation before, the farmers market, and in particular your WIC request, not necessarily your ECE request, that one's a little more balanced. But your WIC request typically always is pretty heavy on local government. And when I look at your program budget, the amount asked of local government is probably about 90% of the request. And I think the concern with that for me, and I've said this conversation before, is where is the community supports, like where it feels a little bit too heavy on local government, and how do we, hopefully doing the 501c3 will change that, but right now it just feels that there's a lot being asked of Longmont and Lafayette and Boulder and the county compared to other funders. So yeah, just wanted to point that out. That's always been a question I ask of this particularly the WIC program, not so much the ECE program.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it is entirely a function of the program design at its inception and our organizational tax status, right? So we are not able to access public dollars in the same way as a 501c4. We're precluded from a lot of foundation grant funding. We certainly saw some relaxation of that during the pandemic just because there was so much aid flowing and folks were just trying to get food to people. I think during the pandemic, we can really point to a proven track record of efficiently leveraging that public-private braided funding to really get a lot of food out, really support a lot of community members, which is one of the reasons why we've been so focused on this 501c3 status. Our food access programs will be one of 3 major areas of giving that we will be fundraising around in the future. You know, we really see our role as more community education and engagement, more food access, and theoretically a permanent year-round home for local farmers somewhere in Boulder County. Other than that, we don't really have many public fundraising goals because we're self-sufficient from a fee-based perspective in terms of our staff operation, which is why we're so efficient when it comes to getting money out the door directly supporting community members accessing local food. I think the other thing that I've just been thinking about, Aliberto, since you and I have started to have this conversation about public investment in the WIC program, is that I really see Boulder County and the communities in Boulder County having done something relatively extraordinary by creating this local CSA, farm-focused WIC nutrition incentive program. You know, WIC is a federal program. It's authorized at the state level. It has tremendous public health proven impacts. It's one of the best investments of public dollars for child maternal health of any program. And you can track that economic investment and that health and behavioral positive effect over a lifetime of kids who have grown up after having that early investment with WIC. I've seen this community invest really specifically on leveraging that and making it better and having a local funding supply so that folks not only are seeing those gains, but they're able to realize them closely in their community and that they can buy some of this great high quality and nutritious food that they'd like to access in those critical years. And this was a program that was designed by Boulder County Public Health, and it was implemented as a local government program with a nonprofit partner. So I just think that funding model is baked into the program design. And I see it somewhat like what we would be doing if we were your preferred vendor for technical assistance implementing the SNAP program, right? Like typically that would be a government entity instituting SNAP. But because we are a less expensive and more nimble and more connected to the local food community entity to put this money through, it's almost a paragovernmental relationship. And I just think it's interesting. I don't have any attachment to it one way or another, but I do believe that is why you see this really focused government support of this program. It's modeled off of other government nutrition programs like SNAP and like the federal WIC program.
Thank you. Any other questions for Boulder County Farmers Market?
I have a question. What would you say to perspectives of like, when we look at other resources in the community that provide food, maybe year round and provide meat and are more accessible. What would you say to kind of help advocate for your program above those ones?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, a really good question. I would just say that we do provide meat through our WIC program. That is an opportunity for folks to access high quality local meat. And I point that out specifically because, as I think you're alluding to, that is a priority for our community members. I am always so educated by our customers, particularly by our food access customers, about the kinds of quality protein that they're interested in looking for with us. So, for example, we've successfully recruited a halal rancher this year based almost entirely on our food access customers' request for that protein product. There is a lot of interest in fresh, local, healthy grocery staples, not just produce. And the consistent feedback that I hear from our customers is that they would prefer less money but higher quality food if that's the trade-off. You know, we have a lot of folks who are incredibly discerning in terms of what they want to feed their families. And they have a very difficult time accessing those high quality ingredients with our pantry partners. So long as you're relying on a charitable food model that is depending on grocery waste, you're always getting less high quality food to families. And that's not a neg to any of our partners or any of the other emergency food service providers in this community. Emergency food is an essential community resource. But I think of our program as beyond emergency into dignity. I think that people should and can access high quality, nutritious food that they choose for themselves through our programs. And we do hear from the community members who are participating that that dignity and choice really matters to them, and that the high quality food really matters to them. And we can see some of the tangential benefits of that as they are less likely to waste it because it's fresher and won't spoil as often. And as they talk about the positive health outcomes for their kids who are eating more fresh fruits and vegetables and have increased food security, that is likely more nutrient dense because it is fresher and more local.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a wonderful response.
I'm going to stop us there because you actually went through your whole 25 minutes. So that's great.
Shocking.
And you have 5 minutes if you anything else you want to share. Again, don't have to use them all, but we'll give you 5 minutes for that.
Sure. I think maybe I would just use 2 seconds to talk about the things that I'm excited about, specifically in Longmont and Lafayette. You know, certainly we think a lot about our East County community members, and it's been quite interesting to watch the growth of East County food access programs at our farmers markets. You know, Sam is my incredible data guru, and she pulls numbers for me often. And she wanted to just note that 45% of all of our WIC program transactions across all of our farmers markets were made by City of Longmont residents. And in 2024, that 45% was up to 47%. So Longmont residents really are utilizing these programs. We're utilizing a variety of funding streams from different local government entities to meet that need. But we're seeing families in Longmont, and we are seeing support for these programs in Longmont. The other thing that we've been encouraged and excited to see is the interest from Lafayette. We were delighted that that city has some of its own funding available. And there's been about 135% increase in the number of participants year over year in Lafayette. So that is going to be, you know, more of our focus. And for us, each of these individual communities has individual community needs and is very engaged with the farmers market in that community. So that's the only other thing I will say, is that it has given us a very rich and exciting partnership to have these community members shopping with us and sitting on our food access advisory boards. It's helping us go into our farmers market vendor selection season with their preferences in mind. And it also allows us to recruit food hub vendors to provide the kinds of foods that they're interested in their CSA shares. So I just wanted to note that these are our neighbors, and that the interest in these programs is growing in our neighborhoods in Longmont and Lafayette. And we're excited to continue to serve this community with your support.
All right. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you all so much for being on here late. And I'm so sorry we talked about food but didn't give you any. Please
That's all
do
right.
come see us at the farmers market sometime.
Thanks. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Hang in there.
All right. So our next group is a similar program. It's actually a sister program to this. It's the fruit and veg program run by Boulder County Public Health. So I'm gonna go ahead and let them in. Hey Rachel and Leah, how are you? Good evening.
Good, how are you?
Good. Just want to let you know, as usual, this is being recorded as it is a public hearing and recorded for, of course, any community member wants to see it, but also for our other Human Services Advisory Board members to review as well. All right, so we are going to, you've done this before. We're going to give you about 15 minutes of Q&A from our board. We're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves, let you introduce yourself. At the end of those 15 minutes, we'll give you another 5 if you want to share anything. And then we will be done. So thank you for being here tonight, first of all. And let's start with Cassie. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, yeah, I'm Cassie Lau, and I am a board member, and it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right. I'm not sure if Crystal's ready.
Hi, my name is Crystal Prieto. I'm a board member. Pleasure to meet you.
Right.
Nice to meet you.
Christina?
Hi, Christina Pacheco, Human Services Director, and I work with Eliberto.
Of course, you know me, Human Services Program Manager, and I help facilitate this whole process. So I'm going to go ahead and start the timer, and we will see if the board has any questions for the pro. Oh, wait, sorry. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves first, and then we'll get going. I'm sorry.
No worries. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rachel Arndt. I work at Boulder County Public Health, excuse me, and I manage our healthy eating, active living, and built environment programs.
Hi, everyone. Amelia Holbert. I work on the team with Rachel and support our food security work.
All right, getting started. First of all, any questions from the board?
Oh, actually, I have one. So I saw that this year you hired a health and equity manager. And I was wondering if you thought, was there like a weakness or you're just expanding or why you hired somebody for that role? Or I think it's a new role. So if you could talk about why you did that first, please.
Sure. So we didn't hire anyone on our team. There are 175 employees at Boulder County Public Health. We kind of do everything from restaurant inspections to the WIC program to health and racial equity. And we have had over probably the last 8 years or so an internal committee of folks working on health and racial equity within our organization. Before COVID, we had another health and racial equity manager. And as you know, everyone got reassigned and we all had very interesting work in public health. So we hired a different person, I think in late 2022. Is that about the right timeline?
I think so. Yeah.
About that to be our health equity manager. And it really was, I believe, again, I'm not a director of our agency, but an intention to prioritize and elevate health equity throughout our organization and to drive collective action in that way within our programs. That person did recently leave, so we will be rehiring for another health and racial equity, but it's more to help us create a cohesive vision as an entire agency and to implement programs and policies throughout all of the, I think, 30 plus programs that we offer.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Crystal, go ahead.
Hi, can you talk to me a little bit about your outreach efforts and how participants are able to access your services? I know I heard for a while there when I think your program kind of started up and going, it was kind of like really wide known, a lot of people talking about it, but I haven't heard much since. Is it through the school district only? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Amelia, do you want to take that one?
Sure, I can take this one. So we are in, let's see, I think we first launched the Fruit and Veg Longmont program actually in 2020, which was quite an interesting time to try to launch a program. So it's changed a little bit since it started. The goal of the program has always been to work through trusted partner organizations who have existing relationships and trust of community members who are trying to reach, which are folks who cannot qualify for SNAP or WIC or federal food assistance. So we started working through some key partners, the school district being one of them, and they are definitely our largest partner for Fruit and Veg Longmont. As the years have gone on, we are completely full with our current funding. So we ask partners to keep a wait list. They are always coming into contact with families who are eligible and really need support, but we just don't have capacity to enroll any more families. So it's not a concerted outreach on our part. As they come into contact with families who are in need, they keep a list, and as families move or families cycle off, we are able to move families off the wait list. So that is really taking place through our partners. So the school district, a community group called Brújula Comunitario El Centro Amistad, and the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition.
Amelia, do you want to talk about the advisory group too that
Yeah.
we will be starting?
Yes, so we have not begun recruitment yet, but due to some additional funding that we were able to secure from the Colorado Trust, we will be able to start a participant advisory board in the coming months, which we're super excited about. We've already begun asking participants through our touch points with them at distributions and then also through our surveys. Do you want to be more involved? How do you want to be more involved? So we are going to hold a recruitment process for advisory board members. So these will be participants of the program who are really passionate and really want to help us guide and direct program changes. So we anticipate starting that likely Q1, Q2 of next year. And we have some really exciting, I think, questions that we're coming to them with, but we also want to hear what's working well, what's not working well. We get a lot of that through our surveys. We survey quarterly. We also communicate frequently with our participants one-on-one if they want to receive educational recipes and tips and information about the stores and what farm stands are open, and also through our partners because they're the main touch points with them as well. But we're really excited to be able to kick that off, and we have things that we want to know from them, but we also really want to hear from them as well to drive change.
And then I have a follow-up question. Do you only serve folks who don't qualify for some of those federal programs like SNAP and WIC, or can you combine your benefits and also qualify for this program as well?
So for Fruit and Veg Longmont, we only are trying to reach folks who can't qualify for SNAP and WIC because we have a fruit and vegetable incentive program for SNAP and WIC. So Fruit and Veg is really the place for people who can't qualify for SNAP or WIC. So we're really trying to conserve those resources for people who have no other option for federal food assistance. So we support the Double Up Food Bucks program, the fruit and vegetable match for people who have SNAP, and then the WIC Farmers Market program for families who have WIC. So Fruit and Veg is reserved for people who can't qualify for SNAP or WIC.
Thank you.
Shin, do you want to do your question? Because I have several.
Sure. So the question that I've been asking agencies through this process is about the impacts to their program, to their organization, if your application wasn't funded or partially funded. We know that the need is outpacing resources that we have. And so we're curious to know what impacts to Longmont specifically would there be if your project was not funded or not funded fully?
Yeah, I can take a first shot at that one, and then Amelia can can fill in for me. So last year we applied for the same amount of funding that we did this year, and we received $25,816.36, and that's enough money for us to operate the program for 1 month. So we have been working really hard to diversify the funding for this program. Our primary funder is the Boulder County Sustainability Tax. We apply through public health, and we have done a ton of education and outreach with the commissioners for the program. We also worked really hard on this Colorado Trust application, which came in like literally 1 or 2 days before we were going to have to make programmatic cuts, reducing the benefits in half. And we received really good feedback from the Colorado Trust. There were, I think, 115 applicants. And what did they fund? 5, 10?
15 of us.
15. Sorry, I exaggerated. 15. But we received feedback from the grant officer that our program really was one of the only ones that was offering a solution to the issues that they had proposed. So that was really good feedback to receive. So we're trying to really diversify the funding, but we won't, again, be able to reach any of those folks that are on the wait list, like Crystal asked about, and we may have to reduce the benefit amount if funding doesn't come through from most of our funders. So we would like to enroll more folks, and we're really hoping that the advisory group can help to inform a lot of the decisions that we haven't had to make in a program, like how long should participants be able to stay in the program, and how much should they receive? Should we reduce the amount to get more people in the program? So we don't really feel comfortable answering those questions. We want the community and the participants to help drive those answers.
Okay, I have one other quick question, just regarding your budget and funding. Of course they start. What percentage of your program is funded by public health or Boulder County?
Meaning like the sustainability tax, that is county funding, and we don't include, I don't have the personnel numbers here. We don't ask for any personnel funding from the city of Longmont. I can tell you, okay, let's see, for this year, just for incentives I'm looking at, we have like $300,000 almost in incentives, and we got 25,000 from the city of Longmont.
Okay, so the 275 of that is funded by the county?
200,000 in incentives are funded by the county. And again, this is only for City of Longmont folks. And we have 73,000, which is a combination of that Broncos. I don't know if you remember, like the Broncos stadium funding, we got 10,000. So that's going away next year. And we have 63,000 from the Colorado Trust. So that doesn't include personnel, but that's our incentive budget.
Okay, thank you.
So our time is running short. It's amazing how fast 15 minutes goes. So I just have a couple of quick questions on something that I just think it's important to understand a little better. When I read your program information, you talk about that these are folks who do not qualify for SNAP, or other federal benefits, yet I don't see any income. You don't track demographics. So how do you know, like, is it, you just compare them against the current list? How do you know what their incomes are if you don't track that?
Do you want to take that one, Amelia?
Yeah, so we have eligibility criteria. Living in the city of Longmont, not being able to qualify for SNAP or WIC, being affiliated with one of our 4 partner organizations and then experiencing food insecurity. So you're right, we're not asking, they're not filling out an application like you do when you apply for SNAP, but we're working through trusted partner organizations who have that information. So we rely on the school district. We work really closely with 2 wonderful people named Alberto and Savannah, who are school liaison resource coordinators. I don't know their exact title, but they hold all of that information. So these are families who are going to them to seek resources. And so they are doing that verification. They are having a conversation. Hey, are you on SNAP? Hey, can you qualify for WIC? And so even though we don't hold that income data, we rely and trust our partners to do that verification for us.
And it's 185.
So we use our income guidelines are 185% of the federal poverty level. That's what WIC uses as well. So we align with WIC, and it is, I can tell you, well below self-sufficiency standards, even if some folks might not be able to qualify for SNAP benefits.
Okay. And then my next question is really about, I'm looking at your outcomes, and I'm just, it feels like a lot of your even though you guys do quarterly surveys, a lot of your outcomes seem to be focused on maintaining enrollment and partners. What kind of outcomes do you have for the actual folks that are using the program? Or what are you surveying on a quarterly basis?
Yeah, I think Amelia has the survey up, but we are asking people about what their largest barrier is, if they are experiencing a reduction in food insecurity as a result of participating in the program, and if they're increasing their fruit and veg. And we're also asking them some questions about things that they may have had to trade off on before the program, like for transportation or housing. That might be only on our annual survey. We try to make it a little bit shorter quarterly and then have one longer annual survey.
Those are great. Those are great data points, and I really will recommend that you put those in your when you do the application, put that in your outcomes, because those are wonderful data points to have, especially the food insecurity one. I think that's great, but it's not on it's not one of your activities or one of your outcomes. I read through your outcomes, and I think it's a wonderful one to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can tell you that our year-end data last year in Longmont, we 50% of participants reported a reduction in food insecurity. That's
great.
Which is really, I think it's a really remarkable statistic.
Yeah, just make sure it's in the applications. I think that would strengthen it, because most of when I look at your outcomes right now, they're really about people invoicing, people maintaining in the program, which are great, but those are more outputs than outcomes. But 50% reduction, or even whatever increase in intake or use of fruits and vegetables, those are good numbers to share. So that's my only recommendation for your application. And our time is up, so I will give you all your 5 minutes now. Is there anything that you want to share with the board?
Amelia, anything that you want to share first?
I think, as Rachel said, I've been on the team for 8 years, and I've been able to see our vision for this program. We first started in Boulder. We quickly were able to implement it in Longmont, and it's just been really amazing to see it for 6+ years and how it really is helping families so much. And I think this model of it being almost nested within trusted community partners really enables us as a government agency and them as trusted partners to really work in a collaborative manner that's really amazing, and really utilizes both of our strengths really well. And I think, as Rachel said, we got to a point where we almost had to cut benefits for the first time ever. And in 6+ years, we've never had to do that in either program, or Boulder or our Longmont program. And that was a really hard week for all of us. And when that funding came in, we actually got to tell people in person when we distributed their coupons at the farmers market in June. We had prepared them. We had done a lot of work in preparing people for this, because we didn't want it to be a surprise when they came to pick up their coupons. As you all know, so many people are feeling the burdens and the squeezes of inflation and everything so much more even now. And so people are just really struggling. And so it was really amazing to be able to tell people in the moment that we had managed to piece everything together and that things wouldn't be changing for them. And so we're just appreciative of all the fundraising efforts that we can do to sustain this program.
Perfect. Thank you, Amelia. And we saw Eliberto at the market that day,
I did, yeah.
which was
That's
great.
right.
We got to
We
tell him
did.
the good news in person too.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Appreciate the work that you do, and have a good rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right, the night is going by fast because our next group is already here as well. So I'm gonna let them in. Hey Kim, hey Terry,
Hi,
welcome.
thank you.
So before we get started, I just want to let you know this is a public hearing and it is being recorded and will be on the City of Longmont YouTube page, as they always are. We are going to give you 15 minutes of Q&A, where we will ask you some questions from the board and staff. And then at the end of that 15 minutes, we'll give you 5 minutes for you to share anything you need to share or want to share. We don't have to use all the 15 minutes and we don't have to use all the 5, but we just want to make sure you have them and that the board has those 15 minutes for questions. Before we get started, we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves, give you a chance to introduce yourselves, and then we will get going with our questions. Listen, let's change it up. Crystal, why don't you go first?
Hi, good evening. My name is Crystal Prieto. I am one of the board members. Thank you folks for being here tonight.
Cassie.
Hi, I'm Cassie Lau, and I'm also a board member, and I'm anxious to hear your story.
Awesome. And I'm Eliberto, program manager. I help facilitate this process. I'll let Christina introduce herself.
I am Christina. I am the Human Services Manager for the city, and I work with Eliberto.
All right. Why don't you introduce yourselves and then we'll get started.
Yeah, I'm Terry Mast. I started with Community Food Share this past June as the grants administrator.
Great. And I am Kim De Silva, the CEO at Community Food Share, and I started in October of 2019.
I remember when you did. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. Board, do you have any questions for Community Food Share? And then,
I don't at this time, so thank you.
okay. If not, I do. I actually I have question and a comment. I'll start with my comment. One of the things that I review as a staff, that the board they have access to it, but it's not part of their evaluation, is the agency part of the application. In particular, the agency narrative that talks about agency strategic goals is one of the things that I really look at every year. And I ask this of all our agencies. So what my one comment is, I really appreciated how you laid out your strategic pillars. And that was very easy to read, and I understood what you're looking for. And my question is, I would love to learn more about so 2 things. One is your sustain pillar, and then your educate and evaluate pillar. I'd love to learn a little bit more about those 2 pillars and how they're going to impact service delivery.
Absolutely. That's a great question. So, yeah, we went into a strategic refresh last fiscal year of really saying, okay, coming out of COVID, where are we? What are our core competencies and where do we want to focus going forward? And so when we looked at sustainability, we thought about it not only in environmental sustainability, but also in employee, volunteer, agency sustainability. Like, what can we do to make sure that the people who are invested in sustainability of our programs and our communities, that we are treating them and stewarding them in the appropriate ways. So when we looked at sustainability, we looked at it in a couple of different aspects, which is, okay, how can we help sustain our small farmers by, if we have purchase dollars, how can we make sure that those are going to our own community? How do we make sure that environmentally we're being the best stewards we can, in terms of making sure that our carbon footprint is as small as it can be for the work in which we do? And when it comes to people, how can we make sure that we are treating people in the way in which will make them a long-term investor, whether that's a employee at our organization or a volunteer to the work we do? So it was interesting when we looked at our pillars and said, really, when sustainability goes so much further than just environmental, but we are looking at creative ways in the future to help make sure that we are being the best we can with recovery of food and getting that food right back out into the community instead of into the landfills, and making our people as happy as we can while we're doing that. So that was really important. And then the evaluation and the education part to us is really about, how are we using data to inform decisions as we're moving forward? So we have somebody, really great person, Abby, who leads our research team and does a lot of listening sessions, a lot of surveys, a lot of work with partners and programs about, when we're looking at strategic direction, are we moving in the same direction as a community, or are we totally off in right field and not connecting with the community? So for us, it's that balance between not making data. I have this saying for the food bank, which is, efficiency does not always equate to effectiveness. So where do we need to be efficient, and where do we need to be effective, even if it may cost a little more to get the food to our partners and our people? So, and then the education part is really coming out of COVID, and the community or the world has kind of lost a little bit of compassion. So how do we educate people to be compassionate toward their neighbors who are struggling? And struggle does not mean us versus them. So I always have this conversation with my folks that food insecurity is not us versus them. It can happen to anybody at any time.
Mhm.
So how do we make sure that we are really being welcoming and have a sense of belonging while educating the public who does not need our services about what it looks like to be food insecure within Boulder and Broomfield counties? So that's really where we're headed with that, those two strategic pillars.
That's great. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. Christina, do you want to ask your question?
Sure. We've been asking the same question of all agencies that have applied. We know that we recognize that need is outpacing the resources that we have. And so what would be the impacts that we would see in Longmont if your application was not funded at all, or if it was partially funded?
So I would say, we are committed to serving the community in any way, shape, or form. I would say the service, I don't want to say it would be diminished, but it would be limited, meaning that, when we have money to invest in food purchase for the types of food in which people want within communities, it's much easier for us to access that. About 85% of our food is donated. So if we are not funded, we would use donated food within the communities. And so part of that education that we talk about in our pillars is, yes, though we do get some funding and try to procure foods that communities need and desire to thrive, if that does not come through, we do the best we can with what's been donated, and then get that out to the community. So I would say that the food quality and variation would be different if we were not funded. If we're partially funded, it would just be a decision about how we invest those funds to best feed the community.
Yeah. So Kim, does that
Thank
speak
you.
to the, the need we have for funding for procurement to add to the food we get donated? We want to make sure we're always hitting, well, we have a goal to hit 70% of those really high quality foods, the dairy, the protein, whether it's meat or some other high quality protein, and fresh produce, as well as whole grains. And so would you think that might be the part that would perhaps fall away a little bit? Is that what you're suggesting?
Absolutely. So what would happen is donated produce versus purchased produce is on a different life scale. So
Yeah.
normally when something is donated, it's what we call at a stage 5, which means it needs to be sent out and consumed very quickly. Where when we can purchase things, it has a longer shelf life and it has more variety.
Yeah.
So we really do take surveys of participants and partner agencies of what types of food are we procuring that you really desire. And to no surprise, a lot of it is culturally relevant food, which really fit into the masas, the tomatillos, the peppers, spices, things in which people can really make healthy and robust meals that represent their cultures as well.
All right. Oh, sorry. Do you have a follow-up? All right, Crystal.
Thank you. So I am a huge fan of community food share, and I don't know what our community would do without your organization, because you feed so many families on such a large scale. So with my question, being that you serve such a high amount of families on a larger scale, especially them being like vulnerable or low income families who we know like typically only have access to food that may not be so healthy, right? How are you folks ensuring over there at the community food share with this mass distribution and this kind of fast processing in and out with the food, that the food is healthy, that it doesn't contain any like, bad chemicals and stuff like that? Talk to me a little bit about your quality practices.
Absolutely. So when I took over in 2019, so I've been in food banking now almost 29 years. And so food banking has done what I call total evolutions of where they started and where they're going. And one of the things when I came to Community Food Share was I really talked to our board of directors about our metric of success should not be based around how many pounds of food we get out, but it should be around the types of food we are distributing. So 70%, our goal is 70% of the food in which leaves our facility and goes into the community needs to be protein, fresh produce, or dairy. The 3 things in which community members and partner agencies have said they really desire and cannot afford themselves. And so when we look at that, so you have 2 streams. We actually have 3 streams. You have the donated. So the donated comes in and we take it and make it offer for anybody who comes in. But anything that we take from the government or we purchase, we make sure meets these qualities in which we want to represent as community food share and which our partners want, which is that fresh produce, the protein, and the dairies. So we really take a look at the one thing that is like we have a farm. So we actually do farm our own produce and put it out to partners and participants. It is an organic farm. We are not certified organic because we do not pay to go through all of the processes, but we do everything in organic qualities. When things are donated in, we make sure that they are of highest quality. And one of the ways that we do that is we are actually audited by AIB, which is the Association of International Bakers. It sounds really weird, but it's the highest audit you can do for food safety and distribution in our country. And we are the highest ranked Colorado Feeding America food bank when it comes to AIB safety for the foods that go out our door.
Yeah, I would just like to add that when I did a little Q&A when I first came on the team I circulated through a lot of the leadership and the folks in charge of the programs. I spoke with Dana, who is our food procurement specialist, and she assured me that when they do make purchases of the government or other bulk opportunities to save money and be efficient with the funds, she said she doesn't allow anything with artificial sugars, and she wants to make sure that there's not a lot of sodium. So she's extremely mindful of quality in terms of those bulk, lower cost purchases. So I thought that was really great.
And I would say, like, just kind of piggybacking, but not exactly on this topic. One of the things is we just had a agency conference at Community Food Share to bring in our partners. We work with 42 partners across our counties. And one of the greatest compliments that I got at the end of it was that this is the first time in many years in which partner agencies have felt like we are truly partners and not competitors, that we're working together to try to solve and feed our communities.
You'll need to unlock your iPhone first.
Oh, sorry. And that was just, to me, that was one of the most heartwarming and really touching things that somebody said, because that's what we want to do. We want to make sure, like, let's all work on our core competencies and say, how can we work together to address what's happening within our communities and keep our community well-fed, safe, and thriving.
To who?
Oh, sorry, that's my iPhone. I don't know why
Thank you.
it picks up on my voice.
So we got about 40 seconds left. Any quick questions that you all need answered, or can we move on to their turn? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to your 5 minutes. And go ahead and get started.
You know, I don't know that I need personally 5 minutes, and I'll turn it over to Terry. But you know, the one thing that I love about working in at Community Food Share and part of the Boulder and Brookfield communities is the fact that I truly do believe that together we can make a difference within our community. When we work together, we know food access is such an issue, especially now when all of the pandemic era benefits have gone away. We have seen our numbers skyrocket, as have our Evolve partners. And so when we have partnerships with, Longmont helping us get food into the communities, it's just making our community stronger. So we appreciate the partnerships we've had. We appreciate the support going forward. And, we know we can't do it alone. So we're so thankful for these partnerships to help us get it forward.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciated the opportunity to work on this application, and thanks for your really thoughtful questions, especially in the diversity and inclusivity collaborative. It was really good reflective work for me. And looking at your goals and outcomes for the funding for this coming calendar year, I was connecting with not just the food security and the quality nutrition that you were seeking in your goals and outcomes, but the social connectivity. And the more I learn as a newbie at Community Food Share, the more I am impressed with the efforts of the data group and the community collaborations team to really make conversations accessible and relevant and personal. And we use all of that information in really good ways from what I have seen in my first several months to respond with program changes based on what our shoppers and our neighbors are asking for, both with the food, the hours of accessibility. And I know our seniors, one thing that's warmed my heart is our seniors really find the home deliveries through Blue Spruce Neighbors absolutely critical to their week and their social connections, their friendships that form. So the whole friendliness in the neighbor community based on all these great strategies and these pillars, I get the sense, and I truly believe that the efforts we're making are really warming hearts and bringing people peace of mind because they know they have meals for their families. So it's been a privilege. And again, I appreciate the very thoughtful questions you were asking.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. The work that you all do is very much appreciated. So have a good rest of your night.
Thanks, you too. Great
Thank
to
you
meet
so
you
much.
all.
Appreciate it.
Hi. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Now this night is flying by because our next group is already here. Well, we got after including this group, we have 3 more, including the one that's going to join. So we're almost done.
Just a drink.
All right. Hello,
Hi.
everybody.
Hi.
Welcome tonight. Thank you for being here and presenting before our board members. Just a quick caveat, as you know, this is a public hearing and it is being recorded. It will be on the City of Longmont YouTube page for our other board members to see and any community member can see. Just a quick rundown on how this is going to work. In a minute, we're going to have a 15-minute Q&A session. We don't have to use all the 15 minutes if we don't need to. And then we'll give you 5 minutes to share whatever you want to share. Again, you don't have to use all the 5 minutes. We're going to make sure you have it. We're going to introduce ourselves pretty quickly, let you introduce yourselves, and then we will go straight into the Q&A. So this time we'll start with staff. We've been starting with board, so we're going to start with staff. So Christina, why don't you introduce yourself?
Good evening. I'm Christina Pacheco. I'm the Human Services Director with the city, and I work with Heriberto.
And I'm Heriberto Mendoza, Human Services Program Manager. I help facilitate our human services funding. Cassie? Crystal?
Hi, I'm Cassie.
Go ahead, Cassie.
I'm Cassie Lau, and I'm one of the board members. And it's nice to meet you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Crystal Prieto. I'm also a board member. It's a pleasure meeting you folks.
All right, so why don't you all introduce yourselves and then we'll go ahead and jump in.
Great. I'll start. I'm Vanessa Keeley. I'm the Executive Director of Growing Gardens. I use she, her pronouns.
Hi, I'm Carolina Neri. I am the Community Outreach and Inclusion Coordinator. The same pronouns.
Hey everyone, good to be here with you. My name is Tim Villard. I am the farm manager at the Food Project Farm in Longmont. I also use he, him pronouns.
Awesome, great. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the timer. We got 15 minutes for Q&A. I'm not sure if a board member wants to go first.
I can ask a question. What sets you folks apart from other organizations in the community that kind of do the similar work?
Great. Carol, you want to go?
Do you want to say something?
I can start. We were just talking about this a little bit ahead of time. Just kind of getting our heads together for this meeting. I think one of the things that sets us apart is that we're really working with community really directly. They're informing a lot of the programs that we're creating on the farm. For example, this year we started 2 new initiatives that were directly requested by community members that Caro's been working with. One of those was a delivery service of 12 of our farm CSA shares to individuals that were living at home with disabilities and weren't able to get out of their houses. So that was something that we set up this spring to make happen. And then another thing that we've been working on, which is new and community-led, was helping people with at-home gardens. We've had a group from Brujula that's come out to our farm for the past 3 years. And after working with Tim and Caro on the farm for 2 years, they were all excited to go home and garden and start gardens at their own home. So Part of the support that we're hoping to provide for people is garden beds or grow bags, the soil to grow stuff, along with the seeds and seedlings to grow. And then in some cases, maybe even like drip irrigation or something to help get their garden started. So just that's, I think, one of the things that we're trying really hard to do is to listen to what community members are asking for and make sure that we're really directly engaging with them.
Can I actually, if I can just add
Yeah.
to that, Vanessa, I try to explain to folks kind of regularly that this is a community farm, and often people think of community garden, they think of farms that work for community. But aside from our small crew of staff, of paid staff, we have a lot of volunteers who are really dedicated. We take individuals who want to volunteer. We take groups who come out. And this is my 4th year as farm manager. And I feel like those relationships have all grown since I started. Some folks have been there longer than I have, but community farm has a unique meaning at our farm in Longmont.
Awesome. So, one of the things that I look at, and I ask this question every year, almost every agency, I really look at what strategic goals you share on your application. I think strategic goals to me tell me how an agency is thinking about itself in the future, how it's preparing for the future, and so I think those are super important. And when I look at thank you for pointing out your strategic goals. And when I read them, they're good strategic goals, but they tend to be pretty programmatic. They're around working on healthy food access, empowering youth and teens, and connecting people to the land and community. But can you tell me do you all have any strategic goals really around how the agency will become more sustainable in this time of just challenging funding scenarios? And what I know you did a lot of Jedi work recently. Any goals that came out of that? Yeah, I just want to hear what agency level goals you may have.
Yeah, in terms of funding, I think that's a really good one. One of the things that our organization's been working really hard with is to have different income streams so that we have events that are bringing in some income. We just had a community harvest event on our Boulder farm tonight. So having some events that bring in income, some earned income from our farm. So we started a CSA on the Longmont farm this year, which is new for us. And we had a sliding scale for people. So we opened it first for people that have SNAP benefits, and that let them choose first to join the CSA. And then after that, opened it up kind of on a sliding scale to community members just at large to jump in. And that's one way that we're bringing in some revenue to help support just the farming operations that we do. So I think in terms of funding, we're trying to have, if you look at the pie chart of different funding streams, we're trying to have a lot of different streams so that we're not, each year that we have a lot of different income coming in. In terms of other goals, Car or Tim, anything related to our Jedi work that we want to highlight or from our strategic plan?
I think partnerships is something I would bring up. Again, after a few years being on this farm, we've maintained all the relationships that were kind of there when I started. But in the past year, planning with our center, in the past 2 years, adding in Boulder County Public Health, and then those are folks who are receiving veggies from us, but then just on this community level, we've really put those partnerships with other groups who have brought forward what they wanted to see happen. That's a big part of our strategic goals, and I think I've really seen that happen in a very tangible way with the relationships that we have in Longmont.
Awesome. Anything else?
Well, the education part could be another piece that we are working with this new location of the farm. we are trying to reach more at different schools, more Title I schools. Like the Y is next to the YMCA, it's close to Timberlane, and we have a very close connection with them, and we are bringing more and more kids every day to the farm. But we are trying to do that with Mountain View and Longspeak. So that piece of education is very important also for us, the connection with the kids.
Anybody got questions?
So one of the questions that I have been asking all agencies is we know that our resources are the need is outpacing our resources. So what would be the impact to Longmont if your application was not funded or not funded for the full amount?
You know, we're really trying to grow our program in Longmont. There's, you know, we're seeing a lot of like great community connections and a lot of requests for what we're doing. A lot more requests for produce, a lot more requests for the programming. So we're so excited about what we're seeing on the ground with the Longmont community members that we're working with. So, you know, we would still try to, I think, fundraise in other ways to do this. It would probably limit the growth of the farm, to be honest, and how much land we can farm. Our organization, because we are just in direct contact with people, staffing is most of what we spend our funding on. So that's mostly what your grant, you know, your funding supports is our staff time out there growing food, and then interacting with community members for education or food access. So, you know, we might have like shorter season staff, would be something that we could look at if we didn't have the full funding. It's not ideal. So I think we as an organization would try to look for other income streams because we really committed and we really like the work that we're doing. We feel like it's really important. But you know, we do have to do all that budgeting, as you all know, make sure that our expenses are meeting our income. So those are some hard questions and discussions that we have to have with our staff in terms of like how much we can grow or if we have to cut things back based on funding.
Crystal.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I really love your program. I think the need to know how to grow your own produce and the benefits of knowing how and getting your hands in the dirt, you know, mental health wise, you know, nutrition wise is so important. And it's a lost art. So, you know, I'm so excited that your program exists because it's so important, you know. If we were to go, you know, tomorrow something happened and we had to be self-sufficient, your program, we would run to your farm and say, help us. So talk to me a little bit about so I mean, because I've heard of your program before and I am a resource navigator, but I don't know a whole lot about it. Do folks, I mean, how do you folks recruit people? You know, how do you build those relationships for them to keep going back? And are these families able to take produce home with them? Or give me kind of a short synopsis of what that looks like.
Tim, you want to do this one? Oh, I think you're muted, Tim.
Thank you. Crystal, no need to wait for any tragedies to come out to the farm. You're welcome down anytime. Yeah, thanks. So let's see. We have a number of programs, number of ways for folks to get involved. The folks who work on the farm, our primary volunteer group is a work trade program. We have high retention, but we have grown the number of folks as the farm has grown in area by 30% this year. We've grown the size of that program and who we're accepting. Honestly, I think most of the growth happened by word of mouth. or participants who had already been participating in our seed and seedling donation program in the spring, which is quite a bit larger and reaches a lot more folks. So it has not been hard to fill a larger capacity for that program. Those folks take food home every week, and in essence, it's first pick. We kind of lay out all the veggies. I'll set limits on things as needed, and they take a lot of food home. That is an income level qualifying program. Some of our other volunteers who come at the end of the week, who are not income, this is open to anyone in the community at all. They typically and often do get veggies, but it's a much smaller pick, as I'm prioritizing any groups who are really like income qualifying that are participating. Those might be veggies that we're sending off site or are being picked up and taken to other community groups or partners, or those folks who come on site. And yeah, honestly, word of mouth, we are a 1 acre farm at this point. We have more room, to grow if we have capacity in the next years, but we have not had a hard time filling that capacity as I've been here.
Thank you. You might see me soon.
Yeah, come on out.
And I think just to add on to what Tim said, a lot of how we're reaching people too is through our partner groups and the community outreach that Caro's doing with Brujala or Central Amistad, or some of the other groups that it's a great way to bring in new families. And also the schools that Caro mentioned, that there's a whole new community of people next to this new farm that we're starting to reach out to. And we have events on our farm to bring people in and get them excited about the work that we're doing. So lots of different ways to get people involved.
Mm-hmm. And one more thing that I would add is the community is very excited to be part of this food system. Like they don't know how to collaborate. It's hard for some people, just to find a good place just to be part of, be volunteer. But in the farm, they know where the food comes from, who's the people who's working there. And I have heard in our center, oh, do you know where these veggies come from? So it's growing gardens. I'm going there and I help in team working on that. So eat everything, don't waste any food. So it's the people knows the whole how it works, the food system, and it's wonderful that they are engaged with the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So we're about at time. Thank you all. I will give you now your 5 minutes if you have, again, you don't have to use it all, but if you have anything else you want to add to the board, it's time to do it.
One of the things I think that we're hoping to do more of is support people with at-home gardens as they get excited about growing food, really taking that back to their homes. So that's something we've been trying to do in Longmont, and that's getting those resources together for people in addition to the seeds and seedlings, giving them grow bags or raised garden beds and soil. It's one of the things that we've heard from a lot of people, like how much it's helping their families eat more produce, to have it at their homes and to have their kids and all of their family members see it and be engaged in the growing of it. I think there's the mental health benefits and the stress reduction and the anxiety that people talk to us about. Reduction of anxiety, did I say? Hopefully, that people say about being able to interact with their food, with plants, watching things grow. So that's something that we're really excited for in Longmont. We've loved doing it on our farms with community, and that's kind of what we're excited for too, is now to support people to take that back to their homes and do more of that elsewhere in the community.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Appreciate you all. And yeah, have a good rest of your night.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. So we got about a minute before the next group. Anybody need a bathroom break, or we can take a quick bio break?
Yes, yeah, that would be
Let's
great.
take a quick bio break and I'm gonna let them in and let them know that we'll be back.
Okay, thanks.
Hey Katie, hey Carla. So our group is gonna be on a quick bio break. We've been at this for quite some time. We are still recording, but we will be right back.
Sounds good.
What's going on?
What's going on with you? How erratic are her contractions?
We are being recorded.
I know, but we don't know who her is. You don't have to talk about it, no, though, either.
They're all over the place right now.
Oh.
It's really weird. So I was hoping we'd have a baby tonight, but I don't think it's going to happen. So we'll see.
She's gotta we should host a dance party for her. And we'll all dance in her style where we're super wide-legged and we won't make fun of her.
We can waddle.
We'll waddle. We'll start a new dance craze. Dance that baby out.
She would love that.
No, she wouldn't.
We're progressive. We go from one person's house to the next till we get closer to the hospital.
That's a good idea too. Yes, and it'll just happen.
Girl.
Did you see that we're fully funded for Christmas?
That's awesome. Yeah.
I know. I hope they can have people come. That's always very helpful because Deb is so super engaged in community projects, but she's busy. So when we can get her there, it's always amazing.
Yeah.
And Josh too. I mean, really. I mean, he's just so busy.
That's true.
But then when we get him, yeah.
Why does your video look so good and I don't? What's going on with mine?
Yours is really crisp.
I'm blurry.
Very soft. I might have actually at some point changed mine to soft. Oh no, I can. Oh, I can make it even softer. Oh, there, look. Oh my gosh, look, I'm like 20 again.
And I look kind of ghostish. Ooh.
And you have a really white light on you. I have very warm lights. I don't like bright lights. I hate them.
There we go.
I hate blue, that crisp blue light. I hate it. I'm surrounded by very yellow lights.
Oh.
Don't mind us, Eliberto. We're changing the softness of our camera so that we look like we're in our 20s again while we're waiting.
That's what we're trying for, but
Well, I have just office fluorescent lights above me, so I've got no.
Well, if you've been recording us, you're gonna love our conversations.
Yes, you will enjoy what we've been talking about while you haven't been
my
in
daughter
the room.
possibly going into labor tonight, so there you
go.
go.
Wow.
Oh.
You guys get to be part of that.
Right now, you're gonna have to give me 20 minutes, okay?
All right. So now that everybody's back, we've done this before. We're gonna do about 50 minutes Q&A, and then make sure you guys have 5 minutes to share whatever you want to share. We're gonna let you all introduce yourselves. And yes, this is being recorded and will be on City of Longmont YouTube page at some point. So I didn't see what you were talking about, but I can always go back and look.
Yeah, you may not want to put that part on.
But yeah, we'll go ahead and introduce yourselves, let you all introduce yourselves, and then we'll get right into it and make sure you guys have your 5 minutes at the end for whatever you need to say. So why don't we start with board, Cassie or Crystal?
Hi, I'm Cassie Lau. I'm one of the board members. I'm pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, my name is Crystal Prieto. I'm also a board member. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right, I'm Heriberto. You know me, Human Services Program Manager, help facilitate this whole process.
Yep.
Hi, you know me, Christina, Human Services Director.
Hello.
So why don't you introduce yourself to the board, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
I am Carla Hale, and I'm the Executive Director.
And I'm Katie Weiser, and I'm the Development and Communications Director. And we're with Longmont Meals on Wheels.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start the 15-minute timer. Board, do you all have any questions for Longmont Meals on Wheels? No? Okay, Crystal?
I can ask something. Yeah. So you guys have been around for a while and you do such wonderful work. Can you talk to us a little bit about any like up and new changes, programs, strategic plans that are taking place that you folks are excited about, or if you know if everything's kind of going steady, maybe challenges that you're facing right now that you think would be beneficial in sharing with the board?
Do you want to start, Carla, or do you want me to?
You can.
Okay. So, changes and challenges kind of go hand in hand. Right now, our biggest challenge is significantly around a lack of funding. And I'm sure that we're not the only one talking about it. Giving is down, individual giving is down, and we're hopeful that election year cycle that happens, although this is certainly the worst we've ever seen. But it seems like more than that. We're not really sure what it is, but giving is significantly down right now, and we've been having to pull quite a bit of money out of reserves. And we are trying not to make too many changes, but we have cash reserves for rainy days like this, and the board has supported us to continue to stay on target and goals for the end of this year. But if things were to continue much beyond the new year, we would have to talk about changes to programming, likely not home delivered meals, because it is, which is what this grant is for, because it is the crux of what we do. It is so significantly important for the social safety network of Longmont. There is a gap in food services for food that is ready to eat and delivered to somebody's home who struggles to stand long enough to make a meal for themselves, struggles with nutrition. And so it's a very important gap. For our other programs, yeah, potentially we will have to look at slimming things down if we were to continue into the new year. So right now, our vision is to try to stay consistent despite a lack of funding. One of the things in our strategic plan, I think our strategic plan, I think is in the packet, but one of the things that kind of ties into this piece is really kind of working on estate planning. That's kind of the next thing we're looking at. We're also looking at reduction in cost of how we do things around the office. For example, right now we mail bills to our clients, privacy issues. And also, a lot of our volunteers are older as well, or some are trying to squeeze it into their work schedule. So typically right now we mail bills, although we'll look at that as well. But if the bill is for $5 or less and a stamp is 75 cents, you kind of gotta ask yourself. And so Carla and our program director are kind of looking at if it's less than $10, that we kind of wait until it accrues, and then talk to them. But we're kind of really analyzing all of those cost structures right now and doing analysis on cost benefit, kind of out there looking at third-party programs to look at cost savings as well in other areas. So we're really in a streamlining phase right now and trying to stay with our core services.
And just to kind of piggyback on Katie's comment too, is, food is always a big expense. It's always going to be. And so we are actually right now looking at another possible food vendor in hopes that maybe we could save a little bit of money. They are newer to this area, but the guy that's a part of it has been with other ones that were here before. So I know him really well. I know that we can work with him and see what we can do. But even going into next year, it's just, what is that going to look like? And as our numbers increase, of course, everything's going to increase. And so how do we get nutritious, good tasting food out to people without having to have to cut corners? And I think that is a huge thing for a program like ours, because you don't want to do it where you're serving them, but they're not going to eat it because they don't like it. And so it's really kind of getting all that together.
Christina?
I have two questions. One is, have you thought, as you're looking for another vendor, have you thought of leveraging your buying power with other organizations, like, for example, Community Food Share? We just heard they were just did their hearing. Have you thought about that, leveraging that buying power with other nonprofits who also do food insecurity work?
You want me to get that, Katie?
Sure.
Okay. So one thing for our programs, even like other Meals on Wheels programs, we all work on our own menus, and we put our menu out a month in advance. So we used to get some food from Community Food Share. One of our biggest problems is with Boulder County rules, we cannot serve anything that is expired or past its best by date.
That's the health department rules.
That's the health. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Boulder County Health Department. Especially since it's the senior population. Right. So we have to be very careful about that. The other thing we were finding when we would work with Community Food Share is they didn't have big cans or big quantities. So when you're making 500 meals and you have to open up, 300 little cans of something, just the time it takes and the staff time, all that can be a problem too. So yes, we have looked into it. We just haven't found a good solution for it yet. But I think we're always looking to see if there is a way for buying power. One thing that we did do as an agency is a couple years ago, we purchased a garage. And so we now can go and like our trays that we buy for all our deliveries, we can go and buy a whole year's worth, and it saves us about $6,000 to $7,000 a year. So we know that there is some ways out there that if we can buy in bulk, Christine, I think that's a great idea, because if you can buy it in bigger amounts, then there might be something there for us.
Yeah, and the reason that I bring this up again now is because we just heard about their procurement person, and Crystal asked a specific question about quality of food, about preservatives, sugar, and it sounds like they may have some leveraging, and that's really what Eliberto and I are really trying to encourage nonprofits to do, because of that shrinking resource, which we've talked about. And so my second question that I'm asking all agencies to talk to us about is, what would be the impact to your organization, to Longmont community, if your application was not funded at the level that you requested, or it was not funded at all?
Ooh, that'd be a pretty big, that's a pretty big impact. And, I think as well, we try really hard, as I write the grants, and I try really hard to be mindful of what I think is a respectful ask. And I try really hard not to be all over the place year to year, to have it make sense. And I know that your committee changes, but I just want you to know that I try to maintain consistency. I don't try to ask for extra things out of nowhere. And so as a result, kind of what we asked for is just kind of a return to where we traditionally have been, but to not be funded or even be fully funded. I mean, we are getting to some we're getting to some dire situations here. We at the end of June, we were down to 4 months of cash reserves. And that was at the end of June. Carla probably has more recent financials than I do, but you know, the kind of the local industry best for practice is 6 to 9 months of cash reserves, according to Mile High United Way. We just had a meeting with Mile High United Way about this as well. And they were concerned that our reserves have fallen below 6 months. And we have other funders who are concerned that our reserves have fallen below 6 months. And so then like you end up in a spiral where then you have funders concerned to fund you because you look financially insecure. And then it just becomes this downward spiral. So it is significant. There is a real impact. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
For me, I feel like too, what we get from the city, even as our space, is huge. And I know a lot of people say, well, you get this space. Yes, we do. And I don't know what we would do if we didn't have that. I think that because I know that we would be in a worse place than we are now. But with the help that we get from these funds, it also helps us keep to not have a waiting list. VOA in Denver, they have a waiting list. They actually have cut off. They're no longer taking anybody extra on that list right now. There's some other Meals on Wheels programs that are struggling in the same way. There's 2 Meals on Wheels programs in Colorado nearby us that I know that they are actually running their program in a deficit every year. So they plan on at least a $60,000 to $100,000 deficit. And I don't want to do that. I think that with our budget, it is important to try to come out as close as you can. And I know you guys have experience trying to figure that out, and it's not easy. But without this funding, it really does hurt us tremendously. And so we just hope that with you guys and other people see the importance of us and see that we are a pillar to the community.
Yeah. I think wait lists are kind of everybody's, Carla in particular's nightmare. I've never worked at an agency that has wait lists, and I know that Carla has not either, but she is very close to a lot of Meals on Wheels agencies that do run wait lists, and it really changes the dynamic of the program and the ability to help people.
Thank you.
And Christina, I will check in with Community Food Share again. Actually, I'll have our program director do it. She's kind of going through the rounds right now. We've had some staffing changes in the office, and she's fully staffed right now, and she's going around to all of her counterparts at all the other nonprofit agencies that we work with, and kind of checking in on things, because the last we checked in on it was about a year ago, and you couldn't kind of put in big bulk orders. I don't know if it has changed. We did check in with them, I want to say about a year to a year and a half ago, but we can definitely check in again because we're kind of working on reaching out to all of our counterparts right now anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Well, and Crystal asked my question about strategic goals. Good to hear that you're looking at diversifying, looking at estate planning. All of that is really, really, smart thinking about the future sustainability of the organization. Any other questions from the board or staff for Katie or Carla? Cassie, go ahead.
So among your clients, what kind of turnover is, or do most of them, once they become clients, they're with you until the very end? Or
you want me to take that one, Katie?
Sure. Yeah.
We have clients that will stay with us for the very end. And I have been with the agency for 23 years, and there's people who have been on probably longer than me. And so once we get them, they realize how important the service is, and so does their family. And it really isn't just the meal. And we say that so often, but it really is more with even having this visit and somebody just show up. Last year, my parents got very ill, and I lost both of them last year, but we had meals being sent to them. And I did not realize, even after all these years, how important that was. I mean, for the people to show up, and my mom loved it. She loved coming to the door. She loved being able to have that little visit. But I also loved it because I was getting feedback. Carla, your mom did look very good today, or your dad didn't show up. So I think that's why too, some people stay on for so long, is it's not just for them, that it's even for their families. So they stay for a long time.
But Cassie, we're actually kind of unique in that we can support people the opposite direction as well, for people who have temporary illnesses, even if they're kind of long-term for a year, but then they get better. But also people who are coming home from a hospital stay. We had a new client call in when I was in yesterday who is older and was getting ready for their knee replacement. And we give 5 free meals to anybody coming home from a hospital. And then it goes to a sliding scale after that. But then they were concerned, but when I do the next knee, will I be able to do it again? And we were like, yes, of course. And so, yeah, there are people who use this kind of during a recovery phase, but then, yeah, and we're unique that way because people can call up and they can, because we publish that menu a month in advance, they can call and say, you know, I have friends coming to town. I don't need the meal today, or I don't care for what's on the menu today. Or they can call and say, I really like that. Can I have 2 of them today? And not all Meals on Wheels programs can allow that. So I think it also helps with people who just are using us a little bit more casually as well. And then they're familiar with us when it is time for them to use us kind of more intensely.
I have one quick question. What percentage of the population you serve is from Longmont?
Like born here or live here?
Oh, I'm sorry, lives in, like, what percentage of the clients you serve are living in Longmont at this moment?
Oh, so we serve Longmont and Niwot, and we assist with the program in Hygiene and Lyons. So it's like 95 to 98% are Longmonters. Yeah,
so it's
we
not
are
Boulder County, it's predominantly Longmont.
Yep.
Okay.
We are your Longmont. I like to say your Longmont Meals on Wheels.
So we've actually run out of time. So great conversation. I'm going to start the 5-minute timer for Carla and Katie now to share whatever they want to share.
That's a great question. I mean, Christina's question kind of, I think, hit the nail on the head for me about what I wanted to discuss. Carla, do you have anything else?
I don't really. I guess I just really want to say that I am so happy that we're working for a organization that is so community oriented, and that we have the community that really steps up to us. I have had a couple people say to me, well, why don't you guys take federal funding? So I just want to address that really quickly. So federal funding, there's so many ins and outs. And one thing is we could not serve anybody under the age of 58 if we get federal funding. We also have to follow a lot of rules and regulations. So like we just had some beef that was donated to us. We sometimes have some food from some of the farmers that are donated. We would not be able to use those products because of the way things are set up. We have to do our menus a year in advance. If you change your menus, there's a $75 fee. So there's a lot of different things that go along with that. So as long as we can stay as a community organization and get the funding from the community, we will be able to serve and do way more than we ever could if we took other funding.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm so grateful for what we do get here.
Yeah.
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 So I think that's all.
Yeah. The community support is so important. And yeah, we feel it. And stop by the senior center and visit us sometime.
Have lunch. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I even brought home lunch for my husband today. I work from home, and as an employee, I get to have 1 free meal a day, and I don't, but I work from home. So when I go in, I bring lunch home for my husband too. So that's what we ate today.
You just got to get moms on your program. That would be the dream right there. Moms not having to cook meals at the end of the day.
Yes, exactly.
You can charge full price for those. You bet. That
yes, that's so true. We
yes.
All right. Well, thank you all for the work you do. Your work is amazing and important, and appreciate you. And
Thank
have a
you.
great rest of your night.
Thank you so
you. Bye.
much. You guys are serious volunteers. We're so appreciative of all your time. I know how intense grant reviewing is. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
All right, and we got our last agency in the lobby. We'll let them in, and we will be done for tonight. Good evening, Nick. How are you?
There you go. Hi, everybody.
Great.
How are
Hey
you?
there.
Good, good. So, quick caveat, tell everybody this is being recorded. It's a public hearing and it will be on our human service, our City of Longmont YouTube page at some point. It's also for our board members that aren't here that are reviewing your applications that they can see it as well. Just a quick rundown of how it's gonna go. We're gonna take 15 minutes for Q&A and then give you 5 minutes at the end. Before we do that, we'll introduce ourselves and then give you a chance to introduce yourself, and then we will get started. So let's start with our board members. If you want to introduce yourselves.
Good evening. My name is Crystal Prieto, and I'm a board member. And thank you so much for being here.
And I'm Cassie Lau, and I'm also a board member, and I'm also glad that you're here.
And I'm Heriberto Mendoza, Human Services Program Manager. I help facilitate this process.
And I'm Christina Pacheco, Human Services Director with the city.
All right, why don't you introduce yourself and then we'll get started with questions.
Great. It's great to meet you all. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Nick Susi, and I am the Government Affairs Manager for Project Angel Heart. I'm looking forward to hearing your questions and sharing a little bit more about what we do.
Awesome. All right, I started the 15-minute clock. Any questions from the board?
All right, I'll go ahead and start. Have you folks had to reduce the amount of folks that you're serving at all due to the need in the community being so high?
So we are lucky that we've been in a position where we have been continually actually growing the number of clients that we're able to serve, especially over the past several years. So in total, since 2020, I guess in 2020, we were serving about 500,000 meals per year. And this year, we just wrapped up serving over 770,000 meals. Next year, we're on track to serve over 800,000 meals. So we're lucky that we have a team that's just really committed to kind of like growth, but in a really sustainable and smart way. And so we're very lucky that we have not had to reduce services. Through combined efforts, both on our program side of exploring different like cost savings options, and then also on our development team, just increased fund development efforts and finding new sources of fundraising. We've been able to spend a little bit more time investing into our healthcare contracts program, where we're actually being reimbursed for meals, which adds another revenue stream for us. So due to a variety of different factors, we've actually been able to continue growing, and we're lucky to be able to say that, because I know that the need has just gone up so much in the state. We're seeing that in all the different communities we serve. And at the same time, there's a lot fewer resources. So it can be difficult sometimes, but that luckily has not been our challenge.
Awesome. Thank you. And then one follow-up question. I understand that a lot of the population that you serve, maybe some of them don't have the ability or capacity to really make those meals for themselves, or to do that for themselves. But for the folks who maybe just have small barriers to making these healthy meals, and understanding really what that entails, and be able to be more sufficient, for example, if your program were to end tomorrow, how are you preparing those folks?
That's a great question. So we have a team of registered dietitians who meet with every single one of our clients upon intake, and they conduct a nutrition screening. And then they also provide both individualized nutrition counseling, as well as nutrition education in the form of, we have group classes, we have cooking classes, we have videos online, we send out nutrition education flyers with each of the meal bags every week. So our dietitians do a lot of work trying to just share a lot of nutrition education. And then through that individual counseling, they're working with folks kind of specifically about the individual issues that they're facing. So, for example, recently our nutrition manager, kind of our head dietitian, shared a story that she's been working with this woman for the past 6 months. They've been having calls every other week just to kind of check in on how her nutrition is going and kind of outside of the 7 meals she's receiving from us weekly, what her diet looks like and how she's eating, how she's preparing food, etc. And this woman shared that she had originally, when she started on Project Angel Heart Meals about 9 months prior, she was on 18 different medications. And after being on our meals for 9 months, she was down to only 7 medications. And so that's really a testament to the great work of our registered dietitians, kind of meeting folks wherever they are and working on a plan to help them become a little bit more self-sufficient in their meal planning, in their grocery shopping, even budgeting around food. And then in addition to that, our client services team does like food insecurity screening for all incoming clients to make sure that they're not just accessing our meals, but if they're eligible, they're also receiving benefits like SNAP and WIC, that they're connected to their local food pantry to supplement the food that we're sending as well. So that's our goal, is just to kind of provide folks with as many different food resources as possible, and then not really leave them hanging, but actually give them the tools to figure out what they can do with the food that they get from the food pantry or the food that they get from the grocery store. And our dietitians are just wonderful at that.
So I have a quick question and a comment. One of the things I look a lot as the part that I staff review for the application is really around your agency, and particularly I always look at what are some agency level strategic goals. And I appreciate the goals that you all listed, and thank you for talking about a little bit about your other strategic goal around, you know, creating those multiple revenue streams. I think that's important for agents to do. But what really interested me was your 4th strategic goal, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. You know, you talk about deepening your research into the impact of your food nutrition services on the individual and community level by completing at least 3 additional research and evaluation studies. What is that going to look like? Are you going to be contracting with a third-party evaluator? Are you working with a university? That just sounds very interesting to me, and I want to hear a little more about it.
Yes, it is a very interesting strategic goal. And the goal around that was really just to prove that the intervention we have works. I think we know that food is important, and it's very easy to talk about, like, you know, that it is important, but actually having the data to support that has been really instrumental in helping us get a lot of those healthcare contracts and have doctors' offices and medical plans actually pay us to provide these services. So we are currently on our 3rd study since 2020. The first, and we have a partnership with Kaiser Permanente's Institute for Health Research. They have a research center called the Peer Research Center. And so we work with a team of researchers there who we contract with. And so the research, it all stems from like Project Angel Heart interests. We survey our staff, we say, what data would be interesting for you to know? What would you like to know? And then from there, we go back to their research team and say, you know, this is what we want to study. How do we do it? Looking to the experts. So the first study was conducted actually in 2020. It kicked off the week that our building actually shut down for COVID purposes. It was kind of weird timing, but we were able to still go through with the study. And so that study actually just looked at if the length of our intervention mattered. We thought it did. We're like, of course, if someone gets meals for a longer amount of time, that will be more beneficial than getting meals for a shorter amount of time. But that's exactly the kind of thing that an insurance company is going to want to know, is what's the smallest benefit that I can possibly provide people and still save money. And so that research study examined, basically found that, yes, providing a longer intervention results in higher cost savings, fewer hospitalizations, et cetera. And then last year, we completed a study that looked at our enhanced nutrition programming. So it was more of a qualitative sort of study where we did interviews with clients, provided them incentives in exchange for their time, and tried to get an understanding of what about our nutrition education and counseling programs were helpful and what they wanted to see more of. And we used all of that data to help inform the nutrition offerings that we have today. So our clients said that they really liked talking to a dietitian. So as a result, we hired more dietitians to help support that need instead of just trying to have our one poor dietitian have to take all of the calls from 2,000 clients. And then they said they really liked the group meetings. And so now we do monthly, we call them food with heart conversations, where our dietitians will focus on a different topic and bring everybody together, and they actually get to connect with each other, which a lot of them were saying really helps with like that feeling of social isolation, since many of them are homebound. And then the third study that we are doing it's currently underway, and it's essentially like a capacity building project. So our team wanted to know, now that our strategic plan is kind of wrapping up at the end of 2025, what's next? What are our next big goals going to be? And if we want to continue growing and serving more meals to more of the state of Colorado, what are we going to need internally to make sure that we can do that in terms of staff, data systems, even down to like the number of vehicles we're going to need. And so the team at Kaiser right now is taking a good look at like how we collect data, the surveys we send, our database that we use and how we're using it, just to make sure that when we are ready to continue growing, we can do that well. So that study, we haven't finalized the results yet, but we should be hearing about that sometime in the next 6 months, I've been told. And so the rigor of these studies, it kind of depends. Like the first study we did was a proper randomized control trial. Like that was a clinical trial. We had people consenting to participating in actual research. The second one, like I said, a little bit more qualitative, more interviews, but we did still publish a paper out of that one. And then this final research study is going to be probably more internal for our team to use. But it's really nice that I appreciate working for an organization that really is kind of dedicated to making sure that what we're doing is actually working. It's kind of fun to see all the results.
So is the ultimate goal, is the ultimate goal to be kind of recognized as evidence-based or best practice? Is that kind of where you want to go?
Yeah, and we're part of kind of a national movement around this. This idea of food as medicine has really taken off over the past few years. Really coming out of the White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health back in September of 2022, I think. There was a lot of buzz around this idea of like food as medicine and how can we use nutrition to actually keep people healthier, or address chronic illness in the country. And so we've been seeing a lot of research coming out of places like Tufts University. There's a professor, oh gosh, in North Carolina who's been doing quite a bit of research, and especially with kind of like on a bigger level, looking at federal like health policy within Medicaid. A lot of work is being done around like 1115 waivers and how Medicaid can pay for these interventions. And so a lot of folks are kind of trying to compile research around like, food as medicine works, providing meals to folks who are sick. It keeps them healthier. It keeps them out of the hospital. It saves on healthcare costs, and it's kind of a win-win for everybody. So we're hoping to contribute to like the bigger picture here. But then also within the state of Colorado, it's very helpful to be able to go to Medicaid, to go to, different policymakers and talk about what's actually happening in our state.
Awesome. Crystal.
I don't know if this is still the case, but I know a lot of folks who are low income, receiving Medicaid or may not be eligible for Medicaid, don't have access to nutrition services. And so it's so insane to me, because it's like, let's prevent this sickness by teaching folks how to eat healthy and help them understand. And so does your program do anything around that preventative measure with the community? Are you guys available, or do you put out material? What does that look like?
It's a great question. It's something I think our whole team would love to be able to do more of. Just due to capacity, a lot of our focus really is on folks who are kind of at the highest need, who are already sick. The reason we've been leaning so much into healthcare contracts in a number of places is that we're often paid in those instances to provide meals to folks more of it as a preventative measure. For example, right now we're working with one of the Medicaid regional accountable entities to provide meals to their members who have diabetes, in the hopes that having healthy food will prevent their diabetes from progressing, turning into kidney disease, et cetera. So we're trying to do more of that. It's certainly something that we're really interested in. And then kind of on a, because I agree, it's really difficult to understand why like Medicaid isn't covering food and nutrition. I was actually just sharing with Eliberto the other day, but we are hosting our second Food is Medicine Summit in December, where we're going to be bringing together about 300 policy leaders and folks who work in nutrition programs from all over the state to talk about pretty much exactly this. Like, how do we increase access to nutrition programs to make sure that it is more of a preventative option versus just responding to the problem after the fact. And one of our panels is going to include folks from Medicaid. And we have a community member who is a Medicaid recipient. We have, I believe Kim Bimsteffer is joining that panel, which will be amazing to have her on there, and just have a conversation around, what more can we do? Because we all agree that this is helpful, but how do we actually put that into practice?
Thank you. Christina, we got about a minute for your
you.
question if you want to
Okay.
ask your question.
So yes, thank you. I've been asking the same question of all our agencies. Need is really outpacing the resources that we have to allocate. And so what would be the impacts of not receiving your full ask or not receiving funding at all? What would be the impacts in Longmont?
It's hard to say right off the bat what the exact impact would be. Of course, we would do everything in our power to try to fundraise and make up the difference. But what we tend to see is in areas that we have less funding, the wait list for services becomes much longer. So when we're looking at our wait list, which right now, on average, folks are waiting about 6 to 8 weeks for food. And we do triage people on our wait list based on, various medical and social need. But the tricky part is when we have funding available, we can move folks up that wait list a lot more quickly. When we don't have funding, they tend to sit on the wait list. And a lot of the time, by the time we do call for an intake, it's unfortunate, but they might not need the meals anymore. A lot of the time we hear that people have passed because their diagnosis has progressed. It's hard. I mean, I hate talking about it because it really is really heartbreaking, and it's hard for our team too. But I think that for us, the reason we try to pull in so much funding is just so that we can get folks on meals as quickly as possible. Just recognizing that there is such a critical need in this kind of short window of time that they really need this intervention. I think our goal with this funding is just to help folks in the Longmont community get our meals as quickly as we possibly can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so our time is up. Our 50 minutes is up. I'll give you 5 minutes for whatever you want to share.
Well, gosh, you all had such good questions. I was going to share a little bit about the Food is Medicine Summit, but of course I already snuck that in. But I will share, I think something that I really appreciate about Project Angel Heart is I feel like it's an agency, and I've worked for a number of nonprofits across the country, both in food and housing. And I've never seen a nonprofit really do such great work at like the ground level, talking to clients, getting meals to them every single week, becoming that kind of like reliable source of nutrition for them. Even through COVID, we never missed a single delivery to a single client. I think we're on a 5-year streak of not missing a single delivery, which means folks know that they can really count on us for this nutrition support. But then at the same time, like I explained, we're doing the research, we're doing our work to make sure that the intervention is actually working. We're not just giving people a plate of spaghetti and calling it a day. We want to make sure that the food we're delivering is actually really making a difference. And our team is constantly evaluating our menus to figure out, which meals clients like the best. You know, if they say that they're tired of carrots, we'll swap it out for broccoli. You know, we always say that we really believe in the power of food as medicine, but we never want our meals to taste like it. We want our clients to really enjoy the food that they're getting, feel like they've got some variety. You know, having meals representative of different like cultural backgrounds. And that's all based kind of again in that research. Like we're asking our clients constantly what they like, what they don't like, and we're willing to make changes along the way. And then to kind of complement the on the ground work and the research and evaluation piece, we're also backing it up with all of our policy work. And that's been really exciting, especially for me, because I know that we've got to make some, you know, bigger picture change. And I love that we've been able to see, even over just the past couple of years, how our policy and advocacy work has really pushed things in the direction we'd like to see it go. So I guess that's it. You know, when you're funding Project Angel Heart, you're funding, of course, the meals and making sure that folks in the community are getting this important nutrition. And then you're also funding like kind of the bigger picture, the bigger movement of food as medicine in Colorado. So it's an exciting thing to be part of. And you know, last year we were able to use your funding to exceed our goals even just halfway through the year. So last year, as of end of June, we served 69 clients over 5,000 meals. Our goal this year is to serve 50 clients over 6,000 meals. But I imagine we'll probably surpass that. I'm very hopeful. And that will come down to, you know, the funding we can secure and outreach we can do. But yeah, you all have been so wonderful and welcoming to us in the community, and we appreciate it. We're really excited to be part of Longmont. And yeah, just hopefully we can continue working together, and I look forward to the opportunity to continue doing that.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for the work you do.
Yeah, thank you
you.
so much.
Appreciate it.
And have a great rest of your night.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you
Bye.
all so much for your time. I know it's a long evening, so I hope you'll get some good rest tonight.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay, thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot. Bye.
All right, folks, that was our last
All
one for
right.
this evening. Good job.
All right.
Appreciate your time, and yeah, we'll see you tomorrow night. Shouldn't be a too long meeting tomorrow. We just gotta check in on a few things, and it shouldn't take too long. So
Okay,
right.
thanks. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we have a board meeting tomorrow night, but it'll be short, I think. I don't think it'll be too
Good
long
thing
at all.
you said something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Have a good night.
We'll
All
see you
right. Good
tomorrow.
night.
Okay. All
Bye.
right. Good night. Bye.